Good morning and welcome to IGTV's early morning call on Tuesday, the 23rd of January. I'm Angela Barnes. Coming up on today's programme, China stimulus in sight. Well, the Hang Seng index jumped following a report that authorities are planning to take measures to stabilise the stock market. The Bank of Japan as well stays put. The central bank has kept monetary policy unchanged and cut its core inflation forecast. And in US earnings, investors await updates from Proctor Gamble, Johnson & Johnson and General Electric before the market opens, while Netflix reports as well tonight. But first of all, let's start by taking a look at volatility this morning and see how the VIX chart is looking. Well, it's down on the day, down 0.63% this morning. Since last Thursday, it's been on a downward trajectory as the S&P 500 advanced on Friday and again yesterday. Well, there's 30 minutes to go as well until the European markets open, of course, and let's have a look at how the pre-market is looking across Europe. Let's start by taking a look at the FTSE. Well, the FTSE is set for a higher open, up 0.28%. And if we move over to France's CAC 40, that's also set for a higher open, up 0.3% at the moment, and Germany's DAX as well, up 0.21% pre-market too. So set for a slightly higher open, but that's after a mixed finish for European stocks yesterday. Investors will now be awaiting the latest European Central Bank rate decision on Thursday. Rates expected to be held at 4.5%, but the commentary around the decision and the outlook will drive volatility in Eurozone assets, very likely, of course. Now, let's have a look at what the picture was like in the Asia Pacific markets overnight. And here we are. So the Nikkei 225 down 0.08%, the Hang Seng up 3.05%, and Australia's S&P ASX 200 up 0.51%. Well, the Hang Seng jumped overnight, and that was on news that Chinese authorities are considering a package of measures to stabilise a slumping stock market. According to Bloomberg News, Chinese policymakers are seeking to mobilise about 2 trillion yuan, that's about $278 billion, mainly from the offshore accounts of Chinese state-owned enterprises to buy shares onshore through the Hong Kong exchange link. Well, they are also weighing other options and may announce some of them as soon as this week, still according to Bloomberg. And let's have a look at how Wall Street was looking overnight. Okay, here we go. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.36%. S&P 500 continuing that advancement up 0.22%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite up 0.32%. Well, in the extending traded, United Airlines rose more than 6% after reporting strong fourth quarter results. However, the airline operator said it expects a first quarter loss from the grounding of its Boeing 737 MAX 9 airplanes. Well, shares of other airline operators also rose, including American Airlines. And let's have a look at how the markets are looking pre-Wall Street open this morning as well. We've got the US 500 S&P set for a marginally higher open at the moment, 0.07%. The Nasdaq set to open up 0.14% as well, a higher open, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average Wall Street, well, that one's just gone into the red, down 0.01% pre-market as well. So investors will be awaiting a host of earnings updates, including from Netflix, due later this evening. More on that in just a moment. Okay, but first of all, as expected, the Bank of Japan maintained ultra easy monetary settings. At the two-day meeting that concluded on Tuesday, the Bank of Japan left unchanged its short-term rate target at minus 0.1%, and that for the 10-year bond yield around 0%. However, conditions for phasing out its massive stimulus seem to be falling into place. In its quarterly outlook report, the central bank said Consumer inflation is likely to increase gradually toward the Bank of Japan's target as the output gap turns positive and as medium to long-term inflation expectations and wage growth heighten. Well, in the quarterly report, the Bank of Japan cut its core consumer inflation forecast for the fiscal year beginning in April to 2.4% from 2.8% projected in October. And it slightly revised up its forecast for fiscal 2025 to 1.8% from 1.7%. Now moving on, because in Australia, business confidence rebounded 7 points to -1, led by a pickup in the mining and retail sectors. Well, it was the third straight month of negative readings, but the softest figure in the sequence. And if we just go to the Forex charts, and I'll just bring up the Australian dollar US dollar pair. Here we go. Well, because the pair at the moment, well, it's marginally higher, up 0.5% on the day. But last week, it saw a third consecutive weekly fall as a combination of global and domestic events supported the US dollar and undercut support for the Australian dollars. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Well, later today as well, we've got Eurozone consumer confidence flash data, and that's forecast to rise to -14 in January from -15 the previous month. And if we just have a look at the Euro US dollar price chart, well, the pair struggled to gain any traction early this morning. It's currently up 0.23%, oscillating though in a narrow trading band. There's investor uncertainty over the timing of a potential interest rate cut by the European Central Bank, as earlier noted, set to take place as well, with the markets pricing in a total reduction of 135 basis points by the end of 2024. Well, let's have a look as well at some earnings updates this morning, starting with Crest Nicholson. Let's just take a look there at the price chart, because the UK property developer has posted an adjusted pre-tax profit of £41.1 million to be compared with 137 million in full year 2022. Well, you can see that as well. Revenue is down 28% to £657.5 million, better than the £651 million expected. Well, Crest Nicholson proposes a final dividend of 11.5 pence per share. And then moving on to Associated British Foods, the parent company of Primark, because it's reported a 2.1% rise in underlying sales at its Primark clothing business in the Christmas quarter, a slowdown from growth of 8% in the previous quarter. Well, the group, which also owns major sugar, grocery and agriculture and ingredients businesses, kept its forecast for a year of meaningful progress in both profitability and cash generation. Q1 group revenue also came in, and that was at £6.88 billion. The company, which also has large grocery and agriculture operations, as noted, has seen its shares rise by about a quarter over the past year. And then let's have a look at Premier Foods as well, because they have also given an update and said its sales rose 14.4% in Q3. Well, the group said in its trading statement that it is well on track to deliver on previously upgraded expectations for the full year. Now, moving on to Netflix, because it is scheduled to report its earnings after the close of US markets later. The Street expects earnings of $2.20 per share on revenue of $8.71 billion. Well, Netflix's performance in the third quarter of 2023 was really quite remarkable. The company achieved an impressive 8% growth in revenue, with a net addition of 8.76 million paid memberships. For Q4, Netflix had previously said it anticipated the continuation of robust user growth momentum. The net addition of paid memberships is projected to be close to the previous quarter, potentially with another 8 to 9 million new subscribers. Well, in November 22, Netflix has introduced a cheaper ad tier subscription, and one recently it cracked down on passport sharing as well. And these two measures remain under investor scrutiny. And let's have a look, as you can see the price chart here. Well, the company's share price has gained about 41% over the last year and is currently trading higher ahead of its earnings update, up 0.71% pre-Wall Street open. Okay, so let's have a look at Procter and Gamble because their earnings are forecast at $1.70 per share on revenue of $21.47 billion. Well, Procter & Gamble has already warned the market that it will take a $1.3 billion impairment charge on its Gillette business. The stock has underperformed the market in the past year, only gaining 3.6% compared to the S&P 500's 24% rise. And then we've also got Johnson & Johnson as well today, scheduled to report before the bell too. Well, the street anticipates earnings of $2.28 per share. Revenue is expected to decline by 11.5% year over year to £21 billion. Well, the market will be particularly attentive to any strategic developments. In November last year, it completed the spin-off of its consumer health branch, Kenvue, as it wants to focus on its pharmaceutical and medical device business. Well, Johnson & Johnson shares are back where they were at the end of September last year, around 162 mark, before falling in October and then gaining ground again. Year to date, its shares are up about 4.5%, currently up 0.43% on the day. It's an all-session stock on the IG platform. That's ahead of the Wall Street opener. So let's have a look as well now at other US earnings expected today, and they include General Electric. Earnings per share expected to come in at 89 cents on revenue of $17.16 billion. Verizon Communications also reporting earnings per share expected $1.08 on revenue of $34.56 billion. Okay, well, let's have a look. So there's a lot going on in earnings to keep across today, certainly for investors. And let's just have a quick look at commodities and see what's happening with oil prices this morning, because, well, oil, little change this morning after gaining 2% yesterday. Let's first of all, we've got US crude here currently up 0.37%, trading around $75 a barrel, and then over to Brent up 0.3%, trading around $79 a barrel. Well, WTI set a 4-week high touching $75.42, and then Brent as well briefly rose above $80. First in a couple of weeks. Traders are particularly looking at how the Ukraine-Russia conflict is evolving, because yesterday a suspected Ukrainian drone attack on Novatek's Baltic Sea terminal halted exports. Extreme cold weather in the US is also continuing to hamper crude production. And let's just have a quick look at gold as well this morning to see how that's going. Well, it's currently up 0.44%. It's still above that $2,000 level, reversing some losses overnight, although the upside potential seems limited. Geopolitical risks and China's economic risks, however, are lending the yellow metal support, at least some. And then if we have a quick look at silver too, it's also higher this morning, up 1.16%. And then over to copper, just quickly before we go, that one's also higher on the day, up 0.69%, which is, copper's been on a downward trajectory this month, but just looking higher this morning so far. Well, that's all we've got time for on Early Morning Call on IGTV. Thank you very much for watching, and do keep across all the other shows we have coming up today, including Beat the Street. That's on ahead of the Wall Street Open with Angeline Ong. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.